Hi, this is Lu. In this presentation, I'm going to demonstrate my paper entitled Multimodal Restoring to Reclaim Agency in Japanese Language and Culture Learning. So in my literature review, I have these four subtitles. The first one being Agency in Language, Literacy, and Culture Learning. Agency basically means the capacity to initiate, deliberate, and act with purposes and interests. The second one being the non-traditional texts as pedagogical tools. I have reviewed literatures on the amateur-driven media, such as those self-made or published non-traditional texts, including comics, graphic novels, and animations. So these visual experience can offer words, colors, and lines, and they can boost student confidence and sense of pride. I also have the storybook reading and making in language education, as well as multimodal composing, where the storybooks they carry a solid structure centering the narrative, such as characters and plot. And the students they draw on semiotic resources such as oral, visual, and audio, gestural, spatial resources on top of linguistic test for meaning making. After reviewing all of this literature review, I realized how, despite the number of scholarship delving into the benefits and challenges of multimodal composition in language education, research on how multimodal composing impacts the learning of not just language, but also culture, as well as how learners exercise their agency in the process remains scant. So filling this gap, I intend to ask this question of how the storybook helped reclaim language learners agency and restoring themselves into existence. So the theoretical framework is restoring from one of the readings in our pop culture class, which means the agentive act of reauthoring one's narrative, narrating oneself into existence. It's very liberating, emancipating, and transformative. When it comes to my methodology, I used CREST 2010 social semiotic multimodality as my framework, and I also used the thematic qualitative analysis to approach to my data. I have this single case study where Ron pseudonym is a university level Japanese learner in a Southeast public university, and to triangulate my data, basically, I have the semi-structured interview and multimodal artifact, which is the manga style storybook created by the participants. So I have these three themes, which are restoring the self, the counter narratives, and through multimodality, which because of time, I cannot go into explaining them. But then following each of these themes, I have very concrete examples from the artifact as well as the interview that demonstrate how these themes are being illustrated in my paper. So in this study, the implications are that language classrooms should grant learners autonomy, treat multimodal artifact as legitimate assessment. And as language teachers, we should bear in mind that we need to allow students to use their own way, to have their funds of knowledge, to have their words and their worlds where they simply do not simply learn Japanese, they use Japanese to speak back. And that's the magic and power of multimodal storytelling. And so to wrap up, we as language educators should be aware of the fact that language learners that do not arrive empty. They arrive full of worlds waiting to be authored, not to be filled. And our task is to hand them the magic pen.